Hello, everyone, and welcome to a wonderful episode of the Duck Zone. And we are over halfway through the NFL season, which is wild, actually, right at the midway point. And we are closing out almost the last month here of the college football season. Time has really flown, but we're going to jump right on into it. James, how was your week? It is Halloween. Are you doing anything fun tonight?
I am not. We're having Ashley and I are making a fun little dinner, and then we're gonna pass out candy to kids. But I'm not dressing up. Maybe next year I'll think about it. But with the wedding like 2 weeks ago, my mind just hadn't quite made it to Halloween, and now it's already here.
Yeah. Well, if you're like me, you'll probably be watching the Houston Jets game and probably whatever basketball games on TNT. So, probably. Yeah. Going back a week though, what are your reactions to week 8 of the NFL season? There was a lot that happened. I'll give you the floor. There's a lot I know you got to cover.
Yeah, the first thing I'll bring up, I hadn't really written it down. It actually just happened a couple days ago. But Deontay Johnson got traded to the Ravens. At first, I wasn't a huge fan of the move, and technically, we still don't really know because the game hasn't played yet. But I don't know. I just thought there was other teams out there who could have used his services, and maybe if all it took was a fifth round pick or fourth round or sixth round, whatever it was a pick to the Panthers. They could have used Deontay a little more. The Ravens, I don't know, Bateman and Zay Flowers, I think, are serviceable. Mark Andrews is actually starting to pick it up. So it didn't seem like a huge need, especially because they're a run-first team, but so be it. Deontay Johnson's a Raven. Moving on, the notes. Cup and Nakua are pretty important to the Rams, huh? That's my little question. But I think it's pretty easy to answer that they obviously are very important to the Rams, and we saw their offense get back to what they normally do. Cardinals back-to-back walk-off field goals, and crazy enough, they are first place in the NFC West. That's weird. The Jets are a mess. We'll get to see tonight if they can turn things around. I mean, they brought Adams in. Rodgers got the head coach fired. They're still just not winning, so they need to do something. The Eagles are back and starting to look like a really solid team. Hurts hasn't been amazing, but I think he's doing it a lot with his legs, and Saquon Barkley is just a huge upgrade to that running back. I mean, he has been all season. Love, and that being Jordan Love, got hurt again, and it was his groin, which is never good, but it looks like he's going to try to play through it, so initially I was like, oh no, not again. The Packers are going to have to go with Willis, but if he does miss this week, it looks like it might just be a 1 week absence. Willis is serviceable, but it sounds like Jordan Love's going to really try to play through it. I'm going to say this again. I know I've said it. I know I for sure said it last week and maybe even weeks prior, but the Lions are the best team in the NFC, and I'm now going to one-up that. I think the Lions are the best team in the NFL.
Yep.
Baker is a good quarterback. He seems like he can make it kind of work with anyone. I know they didn't win, but he did have a couple picks, but he's looking like more than just a serviceable quarterback. Jameis should have started weeks ago. I'm not going to go into any detail more about that. If you obviously have been listening to our podcasts, you know what I've been saying for weeks now when it comes to Deshaun Watson. But Jameis, he looked pretty good. He almost blew the game by throwing it right to a Ravens defender, but the guy didn't catch it, so the Browns were able to win. Lad McConkey had his breakout performance, and, I wouldn't say I was a huge believer in Lad during the draft and him coming into the year, but he's looking like a pretty good receiver. I don't know if he's a number one if he's on a playoff team, but he could easily be a number two and definitely a slot guy. I mean, I think he's better than the Edelmans and Wes Welkers in terms of just skill and size.
Yeah.
But I'm not sure if he's like a number one receiver. But we'll see. The Chiefs just can't lose. I'm not going into any more detail. They just win. Mahomes is not having a good year, but they just win. The Cowboys, yeah, I don't know. I don't even know what to say. They need to do something. They need to either fire McCarthy or make like a splash trade on defense or something, because that team. Yeah, I don't even know what to say. That team is just very. If you're a Cowboys fan, you're frustrated. If you're anyone else in the NFL, you're probably just kind of laughing at them. But they're not a good team. And last but not least, and I will let you kind of give your opinion on this, but holy Hail Mary. That was quite the ending to the Washington game, Washington Bears. And Sean, I know you have a little bit to say on that when it comes to the defensive back who was chirping at the Commanders fans. So I'll let you say a little bit before we get into our picks.
Yeah, I mean, that was definitely probably play of the year. It's amazing how cameras pick up everything in 2024 at this point. You can't get away with anything. I know he's kind of already done his apology tour and saying he'll never do it again, but it's amazing how an NFL guy can get burned like that. And I'll be shocked if we see another slip up that bad the rest of the year out of anyone in the NFL. It's a good prime example of don't do this. Going to make you it was almost like an immediate retaliation from God on that one of, you think you're going to show off to everyone and then be out of position to give up the game-winning touchdown. Pretty funny. In the end, it's just like in the legend of Jalen Daniels just kind of grows here of, wow, this guy is really turning around a bad Washington team in a year. But you got to feel for Chicago's got a lot of problems. I know they're 4-3, but their schedule's about to get very, very difficult. They have to still play everyone in their division. They could go winless in the division. I wouldn't be surprised. It's kind of a fraudulent 4-3 a little bit, and I think Matty Eberflus is that one play. And in the play before, I mean, there's a few things that happened in that game. The play before is almost as bad as the touchdown, where it's like, okay, here's a free 10 yards, knowing Jalen Daniel could not have made the pass had that 10 yards been there anyway. So it's like they literally gave him the opportunity with that little, like, here's a free out. You can't do that. And Tony Romo literally said it on the broadcast right before it happened. Don't let him do it, and they just let him do it. Defensive guys on the sideline saying you got to press up on them, and they were just saying no, we're okay. I mean, it's just bizarre. The whole thing. I got to feel for Chicago fans across the board on that one.
Yeah, I've never understood prevent defense. I mean, like I get it when it comes down to plays like those Hail Mary type plays and stuff, but like you have to have a couple guys at least 3, maybe 4 guys rushing the passer, just getting some sort of pressure. And then at least have maybe a couple 2 linebackers out there, someone to cover the medium part of the field. Because I mean, there literally was no one in sight, and that play was just as pivotal. Just to make, like you said, to make that Hail Mary happen. So,
but I mean, it's bizarre. I'll say one more thing. I'll say one more thing really quick about that play. It was amazing that he had 13 seconds to throw the ball as well. I mean, that's just bizarre. I know that's been talked about by a lot of people, but he had 13 seconds to release that ball. That's crazy. We'll jump right into the pick. We'll jump right into the picks right now. We'll keep it nice and simple. We got 15 games on the slate. Pittsburgh and San Francisco are on a bye. So we'll start out on Thursday night, tonight, Halloween night. Houston heading to New York to take on the Jets. Jets just in a total downhill spiral. I know you kind of mentioned that before, but who do you got?
Fun stat about the Jets, and just because this game's at MetLife, something I heard on one of the one of the podcasts I listen to, the what was it? It was something about like there were more touchdowns scored by Notre Dame in the Notre Dame Navy game at MetLife than the Jets and Giants have scored all season at
Jeez.
their home stadium,
Brutal.
which is awful. So, with that in mind, I'm taking the Texans on the road. I think last I checked, and don't quote me, I think the Jets were favored. If they aren't anymore, they had been at one point. They might still be, I haven't looked. But I just can't pick the Jets right now. I know the Texans are banged up, but there's nothing the Jets have shown me. I think it's going to be the Joe Mixon show, and maybe we'll see a Tank Dell breakout.
Yep.
But I like the Texans on the road.
I got Houston as well. The Jets are favored, which is wild to me. But yeah, I'll take the Texans on the road. Moving on to Sunday, first game, Dallas heading to Atlanta. Atlanta favored in this one.
I like the Falcons. I mean, just like I had mentioned with the Jets, the Cowboys are a mess, and they are so bad defensively. And it's kind of a mirage of, last week we saw the Cowboys almost make a miraculous comeback, but it was garbage time, and they obviously didn't do it. So, yeah, give me Bijan Robinson. Give me another really good Kirk Cousins game because that Cowboys defense is bad. So Falcons at home.
I'm going to take Atlanta as well. If Dallas somehow does pull this off, though, and gets the win, I think this is the game that turns around their season. But I don't think it happens. I got Atlanta. Miami heading into a rainy Buffalo, or at least in the forecast right now is expected rain. Who do you got in this AFC East matchup?
I like the Bills. The Dolphins over the years with Tua have proven that they need like perfect sunny weather. So if there's any type of weather, the Dolphins, it's almost, like you want to refer to the Dolphins offense, what we've known them as, a Ferrari, a fast car. They almost move too fast and you throw a little water in there, they can slip up. So I like the Bills at home.
I got the Bills as well. Two teams kind of in the cellar right now. Las Vegas heading to Cincinnati. Who do you got in this one?
I'm literally going Bengals because they're the home team and they have a better quarterback and just better options. Personally, I know they're both teams are not great, but give me Jamar Chase. Bengals.
Yeah, I'm doing the same on that one. Not too hard. It's hard to bet on the Raiders right now. Interesting matchup. Two teams coming off of wins here. The Chargers going to Cleveland. Very different looking Cleveland team than it was just a few weeks ago.
Yeah, I'm going to keep the Jameis hype going. I think he just gives a little bit more to this offense. He doesn't hold the ball as long as Deshaun Watson, so that's a plus. Maybe we'll see a little more out of Nick Chubb. This will be week 3 with him back. And yeah, just, I don't know. The Chargers, there's something about them. I'm not fully on board with them quite yet. They also have to travel across the country, so that makes it tough. So I like the Browns at home.
I'm actually going to take the Chargers in this one for one reason and one reason alone. I think what we saw last week out of Cleveland was a little bit of a mirage. Baltimore's pass defense is dreadful. I think Jameis is good, but I don't think Jameis is as good as we saw last week. It's a little bit of a step up. This Chargers defense is pretty good. I think it's going to be a sloppy game, and Harbaugh finds a way to win these sloppy games. So I'm going to take the Chargers in this one. Potentially very important for next year's draft. New England Patriots heading to Tennessee, taking on the Titans. These are two teams that are definitely in the bottom 5 of the NFL.
I'm going Titans. I'm kind of hoping that Rudolph plays because he actually made Calvin Ridley look human.
Yeah.
I have no idea. I could see either of these teams. I don't have any analysis. I'm just taking the Titans because they're at home.
That's fair. I'm going to take New England. I'm just riding off the fact they'll win 2 in a row. I like kind of what they saw. I know we have no idea who's going to play quarterback right now, but I'm going to take New England. I just like them a little bit more. They're both bad. Washington Commanders heading to the New York Giants. Who do you got in this one?
I like the Commanders on the road. Giants just don't do it for me, and it's another week of Jaden Daniels maybe recovering a little more from that injury he sustained. So he should start obviously getting back to his normal form that we'd seen. So give me the Commanders.
Yeah, I'm going to take the Commanders as two. The Commanders too. Giants over the last couple weeks have looked a little bit better. Granted, I have really low expectations for them. Granted, I think it is a weird line, the 3 right now for the Commanders. I feel like it would be higher than that, even though they're on the road. Um, Still in the morning slate, New Orleans heading to Carolina. If you remember Week 1, this was a bloodbath. This should be a pretty easy pick.
So I was really close to picking the Panthers. Like I'd mentioned, Deontay got traded out, so they're going full rebuild, full young mode. Bryce Young got named the starter again. He looked okay. Then you got Leggett and Coker, and maybe we see Jonathan Brooks going into the weekend. It's looking like he's practicing again. I know he practiced last week but didn't play, but we'll see. The only reason I'm switching to the Saints, though, is because I'm pretty sure Derek Carr is going to play, and if he plays, I think that I'm not going to say the offense gets back to what it was, but it'll be a whole hell of a lot better than with Rattler or Jake Hayner behind,
Yeah.
under center. So I like the Saints on the road, but I don't think it's going to be a bloodbath like we saw early on.
Saints are getting healthy. I think the Saints win this one. Carr's going to play, and it looks like Brooks, I just saw, looks like he's going to play as well. But I'm going to take the Saints in that one. Denver going to Baltimore, as you say. Johnson looks like he's on the track to play for Baltimore in this in his first game. But as we talked about just a moment ago, Baltimore, worst pass defense in the NFL. A really weird thing to say about a Baltimore team. And here's a weird stat for you. This is crazy. In the last 42 games that Baltimore has led with 2 minutes to go, they've lost 8 of those games. That is horrible. So Denver going to Baltimore. This team can't close, and this team does not have a pass defense. You would have thought they would have fixed that on the defensive side, but no, they went to go get another receiver.
Well, with all that being said, I'm still taking the Ravens at home. I think they just have the pedigree overall. Bo Nix is still a rookie. Everyone needs to remember that. He's been looking a lot better. But, I think the Ravens go back to just ground and pound and even if it's a sloppy and not by a lot of a win's a win. So I like the Ravens at home.
I'm going to take the Ravens as well. Afternoon slate, we got Jacksonville heading to Philadelphia.
I like Philly. I think, like I had mentioned in my notes, I think Philly's back, and I think we're going to start kind of seeing the Philadelphia Eagles that a lot of people thought we would be seeing. So Philly at home.
Yeah, I got Philly as well. Chicago going to Arizona.
I'm going to ride with the Cardinals. I think they're going to come back home after that second walk-off field goal victory, and they're not doing it nicely. They're not the most fun to watch, but they're winning football games, and the Bears are kind of a mess, especially coming off that Hail Mary. I don't know. There's just something with Kyler Murray and the Cardinals that makes me think they'll at least beat the Bears. So I like the Cardinals at home.
I got the Cardinals for a lot of the same reasons. So probably game of the week here. Detroit heading to Green Bay, and as you said, it looks like Love's probably going to play.
I still like the Lions on the road. Their offense is just absolutely insane. It's a juggernaut. And then their defense is also, they're just ball hawk defenders. I mean, yeah, they just look like the most complete team that I've seen this year. And, groin issues. I remember when I was a kid, I messed my groin up playing baseball, and it lingers for a little while. So, it literally just happened this past week with Love. So, one weird step, one weird hit, and his leg, goes out a little, veers off one weird way, he could be out of the game. So I like the Lions on the road.
Yeah, I'm taking the Lions as well for a lot of the same reasons you just said. This is not a team you want to come in banged up. Green Bay is coming in a little banged up, especially with Love being hurt. They put on pain, and I'm going to take Detroit for that. LA Rams heading up to Seattle. Who you got in this one?
I like the Rams. The Seahawks are just a little too banged up for me, and yeah, I don't know. I mean, the fact that Cup and Nakua are back. I mean, Kyron Williams almost seems like he's a guaranteed touchdown a week. I mean,
Yeah.
Stafford's got his weapons back, and I think we're going to see the Stafford we're normally used to seeing. So I like the Rams.
This is always a weird game. Like it doesn't matter if one team's good, when one team's bad. These teams seem to play each other very evenly. Um, Seattle's coming off an embarrassing loss. The Rams are coming off a great win in Minnesota. If you got any head on straight, you take the Rams. You say that's easy. Therefore, I'm taking Seattle. Doesn't make any sense. This is the NFL. It's a rivalry game, so I'm going to take Seattle. I'm just taking the unexpected. It also is weird that the Rams are only favored by a point. After you saw last week, I mean, Seattle looked terrible. Rams looked great. Yeah, I don't know. I don't get that. 12th man probably coming out banging in that one too. All right, going to Sunday night, we got the quarterback change. Joe Flacco in at quarterback for the Indianapolis Colts, taking on those Minnesota Vikings, riding now a 2-game losing streak. Who do you got on Sunday Night Football?
I like the Vikings at home. I think they're the perfect bounce back team. I think they're still good. They just happened to play a Rams team on Thursday night that was fully healthy. So I think the Vikings get back in the win column. Colts are going to look better. I mean, you can't look much worse than what Richardson has shown. I won't go into too much detail, but Richardson, what a interesting player. Makes plays, and you're like, oh my god, this guy's amazing. But that's only like 10% of the time. Then the other 90%, you're like, what the hell are you doing, dude? He's missing guys by like 14 yards. He's overthrowing dudes. It's close to, I don't want to call him a bust quite yet, just because he literally has not played football for that long, but he needs a lot of work still. And, he's a project, and that project's nowhere close to being complete. Joe Flacco, I think, is really going to help that Colts offense. So I still like the Vikings at home.
I'm taking the Vikings as well. I think this is going to be like a field goal game. Anthony Richardson's story is just, it's a rough one. It's turning very, very quickly into the Trey Lance situation. I wouldn't be surprised if this offseason, he gets shipped out for like a fourth round. Like it's going to be, and he sits on the bench somewhere, and someone just says, all right, we got time. He sits behind a Pro Bowler or a great quarterback or something like that, learns. But I don't want to say his time is over in Indianapolis, but he's got a long way to go to become an NFL quarterback, sadly. It's not a flip the switch situation that I think that they were hoping. He needs a lot of work. Moving to Monday night, Tampa Bay heading into Kansas City. This seems like if this game happened like 3 weeks ago, this would have been a great game. Unfortunately, this Tampa Bay team is very, very hurt.
Yeah, Tampa seems to be relying a lot on their running backs, and not just on the ground. They're, Bucky Irving and Rashad White are catching a ton of passes out of the backfield for Baker. I'd really like to see one of those receivers step up, and by one, I'm not going to put Sterling Shepard in there. I want to see Jalen McMillan or Trey. Is it Trey Palmer? Trey Palmer.
Yep.
Step up. One's a rookie, one's in his second year. This is your time to shine. Unfortunately, it's not going to be this week because I'm never betting against the Chiefs again. The Chiefs just win, so I'm going to pick the Chiefs, and they're at home. So I'm never that doesn't make any sense. I'm never not going to pick the Chiefs until I see them lose a game. So from here on out, I'm rolling with the Chiefs.
Yeah, I'm going to roll with the Chiefs too. Monday night, there's no way they lose that game. That's pretty much a wrap on the NFL. So let's move it over to college football. And I know you've got some storylines that you want to talk about based off what happened last week. A lot of big games last week, but what were the big storylines you saw, James? I know a few teams kind of got their bubbles burst.
Yeah, we had a pretty interesting week in college. I'll start out with my notes. I think we should start taking notice of Pittsburgh. They are going to be actually in one of our games to watch later on. That we when we get to that, they're going to be playing at SMU, and that's a pretty big game. Two ranked teams. Pittsburgh's undefeated, so they're kind of they're playing good football. They had three pick sixes last week, which is insane when you hear that. Three pick sixes in one game. That's insane. What else? Boise State beat UNLV, and that was a big win for them, just because that was kind of their last. Actually, not kind of. That was pretty much their last major team they're gonna play.
Until the Mountain
They
West
look pretty primed to win out and go to the playoffs. I know you and I had talked about Genti. In terms of his standards, wasn't his best game. He had like 167 yards and a touchdown. Maybe the wheels are starting to turn a little more slowly. So hopefully in their next couple games they can maybe give him some less carries or rest him if they're winning big in the second half, because they literally need him if they want to do anything in the playoffs. Ohio State hung on in a sloppy win over Nebraska. We've seen this a lot in college football. Some of these teams we think are dominant, the Georgias, the Texas, Ohio State, Oregon. I think Oregon's even been, pretty sloppy early on in the year. They're starting to really turn it on. But this goes back to, I'm not going to go into it much anymore, but the parity, I think, of college football is just getting a little more even. Ohio State's still really good. And, by the end of the year, those close games, all you look back at and you see a W, and that's really all that matters. So, Ohio State, I would have talked a little bit more about if they had lost that game against Nebraska. So much for Navy. I picked them to beat Notre Dame, and I could not have been more wrong. Notre Dame pounded them. That most likely kicks them out of the playoffs. Indiana won with a backup quarterback, and they still won big. I don't think they've ever trailed in a game this season, which is crazy. And they're winning most of their games by double digits, which is also crazy coming from an Indiana team. I need to tune in and watch them. It's my mom's alma mater. And yeah, they just look like a fun team. So I need to sit down and just watch them and see what they're all about. Alabama responded with a huge win against Missouri. They actually shut them out. So hopefully that shuts up the Alabama fans clamoring for a coaching change with DeBoer. I guess tying this back with Indiana, Indiana won with a backup quarterback. How about Texas A&M? They came back to beat LSU, also with a backup quarterback. They benched their starter. So it'll be interesting to see what A&M does going into this weekend. Are they going to fully make the quarterback change? I haven't looked into it. I guess I could look it up to see, but that was a huge win for A&M. And again, they're a team that looks destined to potentially go to the playoff as well. They had that one loss first week against Notre Dame, but A&M looks tough. So those are my notes. Sean, if there anything else you want to add on, any Oregon thoughts or
No, I think you
anything
pretty much
else?
covered it. You did a pretty good job. I mean, Navy was the big one that was surprising. You just can't turn the ball over 6 times in a game. That's pretty devastating. Texas A&M is a team we got to kind of take seriously. I mean, their opening week loss to Notre Dame looks better and better by the season as the season goes on. Um, you know, and Indiana, this is the surprise of the season. A team that basically was picked to come in the bottom three of the Big Ten, has a really, really good shot of winning out. I mean, it's quite a story, and they look like they're going to be a playoff team, which is crazy. No one would have predicted that. That said, let's go into a couple of the big matchups this week. There's not a huge slate of great games this week, but we got five for you guys. I will be honest with you. The very first one we're going to discuss here is game of the week. It is a hell of a matchup. Number 4 Ohio State going in to Penn State, who is number 3. This is a big one. If Ohio State loses this one, their playoff picture could be in jeopardy.
Yeah, this should be a really fun game. The big thing though the reason I'm picking Ohio State even on the road is quarterback Drew Aller is officially like a game time decision, and if he can't go, I don't want to say it's going to be an easy win for Ohio State because, going into Penn State is always tough.
Yeah.
And it'll probably be a close game. I think Penn State has a little bit of an edge just being the home team, and if Aller, I don't even know how to pronounce his name,
Yeah.
plays, but I just, game time decision is a little too risky for me, so I'm going to Ohio State on the road.
I'm actually going to take Penn State. College Station is a very tough place to play. That place is going to be rocking. And Franklin's going to have that team ready to go. Coach Franklin. I'm going to take Penn State. Ohio State's looked a little shaky at times this season, especially recently. I'm going to take Penn State, and we'll see what that does to Ohio State's ranking. I mean, it's unfair, but losing basically at the time, 2 number 3 seeds, it's not a bad resume, especially on the road. But we'll see how the committee punishes them for it if that were to happen. Talking about number 1, Oregon. They're going into the Big House, playing Michigan. Oregon favored by 13.5 in this one. Who do you got?
The Big House is still kind of scary, I think, to play. Obviously Oregon being new to this conference, they're not used to it quite yet. Michigan's still just not a good team. Oregon's really starting to pick it up and look like they really are a number one, or I should say not a number one, the number one team in the country. Honestly, I think Oregon wins this, and I think they cover. I just don't think Michigan's that great.
Yeah, I think Oregon wins as well. I mean, I think this game will be a little closer than people think. This is a very complete Oregon team. I saw it last week against Illinois. We saw it against Ohio State. They were kind of sluggish at the beginning of the year, but they're really kind of getting the ball moving. We'll see what happens with them going to Ann Arbor. It is a tough place to play, but I think they'll be prepared. So I'll take Oregon. We got the Florida-Georgia line matchup. We got Florida taking on Georgia in Jacksonville. Georgia number 2, Florida not ranked. But who do you got in this one?
Yeah, so this game is dubbed the world's largest outdoor cocktail party. Walk around tailgates. I'm sure you'll hear some Florida-Georgia line, a little country playing. It's a rivalry game. I mean, it looks pretty one-sided as of right now in terms of, just who the better team has been the last couple of years. Florida hasn't been the Florida that, the Tim Tebow years of Florida are kind of long gone. Georgia's been running the SEC as of late. It's in a neutral site in Jacksonville, like you said, so I like Georgia.
I'm going to take Georgia as well. I don't have much to add on to that one. Texas A&M, who we had the big win against LSU, now ranked 10. Going into South Carolina, Texas A&M only favored by 2.5 at this point. South Carolina is a tricky place to play, but do they pull off the upset?
I have Texas A&M winning, but like you said, South Carolina is it's an interesting spot. They seem to pull off a lot of upsets. They themselves can't seem to string together a ton of wins, but it's almost like they lose to the teams they shouldn't lose to, but then, have some upsets. Yeah, it's a tough place to play. A&M, I'm going to say they cover, just because, like you said, it was only like a 2 or 2.5 point spread, so, even if they win on a field goal, If you bet A&M, you get the win. So I think it might be a little more than that. I like A&M by a touchdown, but I think A&M, they're starting to kind of flex their muscles. So I like A&M.
I'm going to take A&M as well. Most interesting game of the week, Pitt. Well, one of the most interesting games of the week. Number 18, Pitt, going to number 20, SMU. We talked about Pitt at the beginning here. Undefeated, not a lot of respect. Heading into Southern Methodist, having or giving 7.5 points, which is crazy. But who do you got in this ACC matchup? And this is an important one for potentially getting into that ACC championship game.
I like SMU, and literally just because they're the home team. I will be honest, I have not paid much attention to the ACC other than Clemson and Miami, and those are really the only two teams I think we need to worry about because with an SMU victory, that kind of kicks Pitt out, and I haven't looked at the rest of SMU's schedule, but yeah, I think it's a fun ranked matchup this week, but I think both these teams we're gonna kind of not really hear much about later on in the season. So I like SMU at home.
I got SMU. I have a lot of the same feelings. I feel like this is still a two-conference race. Clemson, Miami, I'd be surprised if either one of these two make a run in, but I'll take SMU. Before we wrap up on this wonderful Halloween edition of our Duck Zone podcast, James, anything you want to add on?
I think I'm all good. Everyone have a safe, happy Halloween. If you go out trick or treating, if you go out trick or treating with your kids, or if you just stay home and pass out candy like I'm gonna do.
Sweet. Well, guys, enjoy football this weekend. A lot of sports going on. Should be a great, great sports weekend. Until next week, we got a college basketball show coming out over the weekend. College basketball starting on Monday. So a lot of sports kicking.
That's so weird.
The year is going by too fast. We'll see you guys next week.